Welcome to On the Bauble Podcast, episode 28. I'm your host, Sebastian J. Ueda, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be looking at some notable cards we found in the Outsiders preview seasons, and we're going to be talking about them. But before we go into that, what did you do this week, Yuki?
I've been following the spoiler season, like I'm sure a lot of our listeners have. Pretty excited for this set. I think that potentially, like, all of the CC heroes interest me to some degree, which is not something I can say for most sets. So that's been really exciting. I've also been playing some Magic. We have a local event coming up this coming weekend, and I have not been. I'm not taking it super seriously, but it's a good excuse to go and hang out with some people I haven't seen in a while and play some cards. So it's kind of what I've been up to.
Are you qualified for the regional championships?
I am not. I'm just going to go play on Friday. I'll try and see if I can last chance in. We'll see. And if I don't, my deck costs like $40 and I bought it with store credit. So meh.
Oh, you're playing Mono Blue?
Yeah, I'm just playing Mono Blue. It's
Okay.
cheap. And it's pretty fun. Honestly, it's really fun.
It's a really good deck too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. So it's nice just having like maybe it's not 40, maybe it's like $50, but it's dirt cheap.
Yeah, they're all mostly commons.
Yeah. And I got to borrow like some of the other cards, so
always very
helps.
good, very good.
What have you been up to?
For me, I just went to go play the local armory on Monday. I was playing Arachne, but I forgot my tunic at home. And Arachne only plays tunic, so I didn't have any other chess piece. So I just had a blank chess piece.
Nice.
It was a pretty close game against Dory, but I lost. And then I played against Icelander, and then I definitely needed tunic on that matchup.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then I beat Alexi, so I decked that Alexi out.
Okay. Yeah, Assassin, Arachne in particular is pretty good. I can't just say Assassin anymore now that we have two Assassins. 3 technically, I guess. But Arachne's pretty good against
Lexi.
Yeah.
It was a wild ride. I just like looked. I went to the local store to like same thing to pick up some cards for the RC coming up for Magic, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and play the army at the same time. Open my deck box. Where's my tunic?
Oh man.
Had to give up on winning the event at that moment. Just like no way I can win this tournament without that card.
Fair enough. It reminds me of how you showed up to skirmish and you just didn't have your Crown of Providence on Oldham.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a same thing. You just didn't have a headpiece, right?
Yeah, I was just missing one piece of equipment. Oh, and I don't have Black Tech Whisper, so I'm also not playing with Black Tech Whispers.
Okay, fair enough. Several handicaps here.
Yeah, several handicaps. Honestly, I was pretty surprised on how close the games were still, but it was fun.
Yeah, I think that as much as you do need the equipment to play at the absolute highest level, I think that certainly at armories, you can do well without all the fancy equipment, especially if you have like actual reasonable commons to replace them. If you're just like missing an equipment slot, it's considerably harder. But if you have like snapdragons and like,
oh man, if I have like hardened cross trap, that would've been so sick.
yeah, it's like it's not bad. Like it's not tunic, but it's not terrible. It's okay.
Yeah, you get some value instead of having a blank space in your next to your hero.
Yeah, I think the difference between tunic and cross strap is like less than most players think that it is. Not saying that tunic isn't very good or that you don't need it, but they're closer than people think.
Yeah, it's also a little bit awkward that I have like Oasis Respite in my deck, and like the main way I used to play that card was off the tunic counter.
Right.
And if you have to instead pitch for Oasis Respite, that card gets significantly worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a fun time though. I hanged out with people and like chilled, and we had a good laugh that I forgot tunic.
Nice.
Yeah, they're just like only Jay. Okay, yeah, let's move on to our main topic for today, which is we're just gonna be talking about cool cards that got spoiled in the Outsiders set.
Yeah, I think we'll go kind of class by class and talk a little bit. We'll try and focus it on the new heroes and maybe mention if cards are relevant for other heroes. I think that in a lot of cases, it's mostly the heroes that are in the set that got stuff, but there's a couple of exceptions here and there, and we'll talk about those when we get there.
Do you want to start off with Ranger stuff?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I think Ranger got a lot of cards this set, and there's going to be quite a few Ranger cards here that we're talking about. I'm honestly pretty excited. I think that Ranger did need a bit of a bump, and I think that it definitely got it. And there was a number of things on my wish list from last time that are actually in the set, so I'm pretty excited about that. Um, so first off, Ranger got Quivers. We already knew about Quiver of Rustling Leaves. That's the 3 cost instant that you can reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's an arrow, you put it into your arsenal. I think that card will see play in Lexi and be pretty good. Works well with Three of a Kind, works well with Voltaic, and just kind of let you do like a go wide Rain Razors kind of thing. But maybe the most exciting new card in the Quiver slot is actually Crow's Nest, which is an Azalea specialization. Is just a token, so she'll have this in limited, and it should be really easy to get. It just says whenever an arrow is put up into your arsenal, whenever an arrow is put face up into your arsenal from your deck, you may pay 1 resource. If you do, you put an aim counter on it. So this is sort of what I think a lot of people were asking for in the Azalea community, was just a way to get aim counters but still play Death Dealer, because Sandscour Greatbow giving up maybe not like an entire card per turn, because you can get an arrow off the top sometimes, but still, if it's like, I don't know, half a card per turn or 2/3 of a card or however much it is on average, is it hurts. It hurts a lot. It's hard to give up Death Dealer. So this
Yeah,
kind of enables her to play all the aim counter cards now.
Death Dealer was so good in Azalea, and then when you have to play something else, it's just like, wow, so much worse.
So our previous spoiler card, Deadeye, is now extremely good in Azalea, because I mean Azalea was already playing it with Death Dealer because it's a yellow 3 block that gives +3. And the fact that you can actually now trigger the Thoughtseize effect where you look at their hand and they discard a card is big game. We talked about how powerful that effect is, and now that there's not a huge deck building cost to do it, it's just a quiver, which is literally an extra slot. And if the card's coming off the top of your deck, it probably has Dominate because you're Azalea. So yeah, that card's going to be very, very good with Crow's Nest.
Yeah, Deadeye. Did you get to look at your opponent's whole hand with Deadeye?
You do. You look at your opponent's entire hand and you pick a card and they discard it.
And it's an arrow with Dominate that gets the +3.
Yeah. So it's like Pulse Wave Harpoon, but you see the entire hand and they don't even get the block value out of the card. So
It's a little bit messed up.
yeah, it is very good.
Well, I guess like as an additional cost, you do have to pay an additional resource to get the aim counter. So maybe that's an actual cost.
Maybe, but you can probably make it work with Tunic.
Oh my god, that's gross too.
Like if you have like a blue, you can go load Death Dealer, you get an arrow. That's a 1 cost. That's 2 resources. This is a third, and Deadeye's a fourth. So you can do it off like a blue and a Tunic. Or you can do it with a 0 cost arrow off a blue.
Yeah. And there are some cards that also gain some buffs when it has an aim counter, right?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch in this set. I honestly think that the main kind of like the most splashy or notable card is Barbed Undertow. It's a red arrow that attacks for 5 and blocks for 3, and it costs 1. So pretty standard arrow stats. It has nothing. It has no text if it's not with an aim counter, but it says if Barbed Undertow has an aim counter, it gains when it hits a hero, choose red, yellow, or blue, and until the start of your next turn, they can't pitch cards of the chosen color. I imagine that you will pick blue almost always.
I think it just depends on the hero you're playing against, right?
Yeah, it depends a lot on the hero. Like maybe against Dromai, you might name red. Azalea, depending how they're built, you might name yellow.
Honestly, if you just say blue and their whole hand is blue, their just turn ends.
Yeah, this on hit against Guardian is actually just a time walk because their stuff is so expensive. Like, what are they gonna do? Pitch 3 reds and Titan's Fist to you? like, like actually, like what? That's like the best thing they can do. I guess they can do 2 reds CN, pitch 2 reds CNC. That's probably the ceiling.
No. The ceiling is play healing bomb.
Ooh, okay, that's also not a bad one. But yeah, this card, if it has an aim counter, is going to have Dominate because it's with the Azalea ability, so your opponent's not really going to be able to block it or filter their hand that much. And yeah, it seems really, really powerful.
This card doesn't say Azalea specialization, but it basically is an Azalea specialization, right?
Right now, effectively, because I think Sandscour Great Bow is just not really good enough. We kind of saw that already. And so Azalea is the hero that has the main way to get counters. I think you could play this in Riptide if you wanted to play his whatever his token bow is that can flip an arrow over and give it an aim counter. But I think that Riptide is decently incentivized to just play Death Dealer as well. I think it's just the better bow.
Yeah, well, in limited, Azalea also has to play the barbed, uh, what is it called? Barbed bow wire?
Barb Castaway, I think.
Bard Castaway. Sorry.
Yeah.
Names of cards. Okay.
But she will have the crow's nest as well, so that's pretty sweet.
Yes, yes, she'll have Crow's Nest. So, like, you can actually use Bard Undertow, Azalea ability to put into the arsenal. It gets the aim counter by paying one extra. So it essentially costs two, right? It's like a two cost for five that has this ridiculous on hit with Dominate.
Really, really good card. Don't think we have too much more to say about that.
Yes. Do you want to move on to Riptide next?
Yeah. So actually, do you want to read the card?
Sure, I can go ahead. So Riptide is one of the newer heroes that's in Outsiders. Riptide has 38 health, and it reads: Whenever you play a card from hand, you may put a card from hand face down into your arsenal. It also has a second ability. It says, whenever a trap you control triggers, deal one damage to the attacking hero.
Yeah. So just a rules clarification that we got in the rules reprise is that a trap triggering means that you get the triggered effect on it. So I think all of the traps in this set have a line that if it defends an attack that is, I don't know, like if they played an attack reaction, or if the attack's higher than its base, or it has go again, like there's a certain condition. And if the trap is defending an attack that meets that condition and the effect triggers, then Riptide's ability triggers. And
Yeah.
all of the Crucible traps should also trigger it, regardless. Like some of them allow the opponent to pay. It doesn't matter if they pay or not, they always take one.
Yes, yes. As a one more clarification on that, you actually don't need to like fulfill the second half of the ability. It just needs to fulfill the condition for you to deal one damage.
Yeah.
We can talk about the one of this legendary Riptide specialization. It's called Spike Pit Trap. This card is a blue pitch zero cost. That's a Ranger defense reaction trap, and it blocks for 3. So this card reads: When this defends and the attacking hero has played or activated a reactionless chain link, put the top card of their deck into their graveyard. Then they lose X life, where X is the number of cards in the graveyard with that name.
Yeah. So baseline blue 3 block defense reaction is obviously already really solid. And then I guess on average, they lose at least 1 life, right? Because it sees itself, I assume. Because you put the card into the graveyard, then they lose X, where X
Yes.
is the number of cards. So they lose at least 1 life, and I guess the ceiling is
They lose 2 life
9.
with the Riptide.
Oh, right, because of the Riptide ability.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
so
I
it's
guess the
10 at
ceiling is
most.
10 if they're playing 9 copies. You have all 9 copies, and you trigger Riptide, which is not going to happen. But I mean, if it's block 3, deal 2, already really good as a blue.
Yeah, this card, honestly, my only like knock against it is like, why did they need to make this card a legendary? Please just let him have 3, and it'll be so makes this guy so insane.
Yeah.
I like broken decks.
It would be pretty good. It is a little bit hard to trigger because they need to have played an attack reaction. So I think that this is a little bit on the narrow side, but if you can trigger it, it's really good value, and its floor is just so good. So yeah, solid card.
So Riptide actually got more than one legendary specialization. It got 3 in total. We're going to be talking about the other 2 as well. The next one we'll talk about would be a Buzzsaw Trap. This is the same thing. It pitches for blue, costs 0, blocks for 3. This one reads: When this defends an attack with power greater than its base, the attack can't gain power this turn. This card's insane.
This card's really, really good. So anything that buffs power, it's really good. It's kind of funny. Like I think this card is the best against Rangers if they've like pumped up their Bolton shot. and you play this, it loses all its attacks, so it also loses go again.
Oh yeah, it loses go again. Wow.
Yeah, I was watching some people play the Riptide Mirror, and that came up a few times, and it was always a pretty big feels bad if you've like kept a hand and your turn just ends.
Yeah, and it's good against a lot of other heroes too. It's like anything that gains power, a lot of cards or a lot of decks gain power. Like,
Yeah, like Briar, Dory. This card is messed up against Dory.
oh, it loses the power from its plus one plus or the plus one power tokens too, right?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but it definitely blanks all the attack reactions, which is already really really crazy, and I think it might reduce the counters as well. I'm not We need a rules clarification to know for sure, but my guess
Well,
is that it
because
would.
the card actually just reads the attack can't gain power this turn.
Yeah. So I kind of think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, we're still waiting on the what is it called?
The release notes where they usually have like a little write up for each card, and that covers a lot of the rules, not all of them, but usually it's pretty helpful.
Yeah, it covers all of them. Like frequently asked questions stuff. I love going in there and like just looking at it and be like, oh, there's like a typo here, or there's a typo here. There's
Yeah.
always a bunch of typos in that release notes.
Yeah, it's a huge document. It must be a ton of work to put together.
But let's move on. We have one more trap. It's called Collapsing Trap. This was the first trap that got spoiled, but it is also a blue pitch, costs 0, blocks for 3 as well. And it says when this defends an attack with Go again, the attacking hero discards their hand, draws that many cards, -1.
Yeah, so super super disruptive. They go down a card, so this is already like a 0 for 6 effectively, and their new hand is very likely to be worse than their original hand because they're just getting a random assortment of cards instead of one where they've like already gotten to block and plan out their turn. So you probably just completely throw off their plans, and they may not be able to get very good value out of the remaining cards. So yeah, Collapsing Trap is maybe the best one. It and the attack one that we just talked about, Buzzsaw Trap, I think are the two stronger ones for sure.
Yeah, it's just more applicable against like every deck in the format.
Yeah, and easier to trigger too.
Okay, any other traps you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's a couple. So Ranger got a few traps that are class specific but not tied to Riptide. One of them is Tar Pit Trap. It's a yellow 3 block defense reaction, and it says when this defends an attack with Go again, the next time an attack action card hits this turn, effects don't trigger. So basically, this can play out in a few ways. You can use this to block something like a Snatch with Go again, and then that Snatch's effect won't trigger. And similarly, if they Snapdragon Scalers their Snatch, you can one card block it. They don't get their Snatch. Really, really good. You can also block out the current attack, and then because it says the next attack that hits. So if you let's say it's like a Katsu and they go Surging Whelming. Well, on the Surging Strike, if you do 2 card block with Tar Pit Trap and block it out, their Whelming also won't trigger the on hit because it's the next attack that hits.
Oh, against the ninja combo lines.
Yeah. It also turns off. It also stops Katsu's ability from triggering, and it also stops Mask of Momentum from triggering. So if it's on the third chain link and you let that chain link, like let's say it's like a Whelming Gust Wave on the third chain link that would trigger Mask and Whelming Gust Wave, you can Tar Pit Trap, take 1, Mask and Katsu won't trigger for the entire turn.
Oh, that's not true.
It,
Mask
it,
will trigger. It's a third or more.
so I guess it's like we need a rules clarification, but I did ask in the judge channel, and currently I believe the ruling on this card, or the rules as written, is that if something stops an effect from triggering, it still counts towards the limit of it triggering. So even though like Mask of Momentum tries to trigger and then can't trigger, and it counts towards the once per turn limit.
For Mask of Momentum.
Yeah, for Mask of Momentum, because it's a once per turn trigger.
Oh, I see.
Apparently, that's how it's written in the rules. I was pretty surprised too, but this card is, I think, really, really powerful.
Effects don't trigger. It's a badly written card then.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing for sure, and we need a full rules clarification to know for sure. But I think this effect is really powerful as a sideboard card, and I think actually every ranger is going to play this card, honestly, especially because it's a yellow, so you can pitch it away as a resource card if you need to.
That's interesting. And any other cards?
Yeah, I think a lot of the traps are good actually. Boulder Trap is also a 3 block and says if an attack with attack greater than its base is defended, you put a -1 counter on an equipment that the attacking hero controls. Just really good value. This, like, if you get an equipment, it's kind of like 4 value. If it's a battle worn equipment that blocks 2, like Grasp of the Arknight, you get essentially 5 value out of it. You can also kill Rampart with it if they attack you with Titan's Fist. So I think this card's really good.
Yeah. And just a reminder, Riptide's ability triggers on all of them. So you can also just like tack on 1 damage on it as well.
Yeah,
It's like 1 unblockable damage, right?
pretty much. Like they can crown it or something, but
Yeah. It's only Oasis Respite and Crown of Seeds is like the cards I can think off the top of my head that's being currently played.
yeah, any like ward or spectral shield, I guess. But yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, Ward.
yeah. So really good. And honestly, I think Tar Pit Trap and Boulder Trap are probably just good enough to see play. Certainly in Azalea and maybe even Lexi, especially Tar Pit Trap and Lexi. I think we'll see play.
Yeah, it's
It's
a great.
actually go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a great sideboard card for all the Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually one of the things that was on my wish list last time was a way to deal with on hits. And yeah, I think this is a pretty good way to do it. It doesn't stop everything. It doesn't stop Command and Conquer in particular, but it does stop a lot of stuff. I think it's pretty flexible.
I just realized that Command and Conquer beats all of this card. Well, Command and
Yeah.
Conquer destroys Riptide. Wow.
Yeah. So maybe we can talk about that. It's interesting. I'm not sure how Riptide's going to be built. I'm starting to think that as much as the trap thing is sort of like how he was framed, I almost feel like the first line of text is maybe more what he's about. The ability to, like, essentially, it's actually not even reload. It's just put a card face down into your arsenal, so it works with New Horizon. Um, Anytime you play a card from hand is really, really powerful. I think he can do some like multi arrow, go wide, like bolt and shot, rain razor kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. So, you can like death dealer in an arrow, attack with that bolt and shot, play rain razor, reload another bolt and shot, play that bolt and shot, play like a nimbleism, reload another thing. So I think you can play this kind of like red line Riptide that has some traps in there to deal some direct damage. And I'm kind of curious if that might be what sees more play, but I'm really not sure. It's too early to say.
Hmm. It is actually a little awkward though, because like Riptide has 38 health. So when you start doing these like super aggressive red lines, that's might not be as good as like Briar. It might fall behind because of the 2 life.
It's true, but you have like a mini Icelander effect where you can kill your opponent on
On your
their
opponent's
turn.
turn. Yeah.
Yeah. Not from as much health, of course, but you do have a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Buzzsaw Trap is still good in those aggro mirrors as anyways. Like the Riptide specialization are just good in general, so maybe it is good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the like one of the crew traps, I think it's a yellow one. It does damage. What is it? I wish I hadn't brought it up now. Let's just not bring it up.
Okay. The last trap that we pulled out here is called Inertia Trap. So this card is a Assassin Ranger defense reaction trap. So assassins and rangers get to play it, which is a new thing in this set where cards can have multiple classes on it now. And this card reads: when this defends an attack with power greater than its base, create an inertia token under an attacking hero's control. Let's just review what inertia does. Inertia reads: at the beginning of your end phase, destroy inertia, then put all cards from your hand and arsenal to the bottom of your deck.
Yeah, so it's like a seek and destroy esque effect. And I think inertia can be situationally good against decks like Oldham and Icelander. However, I think that in general, it's maybe one of the weaker tokens. Um, but when you give it to your opponent on their turn, it is considerably better because especially if like it's on their last attack that doesn't have go again or something, and they're planning to arsenal a card, you might just get like a free card out of them.
Do you know what's really funny with Inertia Trap?
What?
Is if you're playing against Oldhim and they attack you with Titan's Fist,
Mm-hmm.
its base is 3. It goes up to 4, and if they're planning to arsenal the card, 1 Inertia Trap, you get a block 3, take 1, and rip the card out of their hand.
Yeah. So anytime you do that, it's kind of like roughly a 6 point card, which is super, super good.
It's really funny just because if it was Winter's Whale, this doesn't work. But
Yeah.
because Winter's Whale's banned and people have to play Titan's Fist in Oldhim now, oh, Inertia Trap is sick.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the boulder trap triggering off Titan's Fist too. It's pretty funny how that's like all worked out.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty funny too.
Yeah, they can just go Titan's Fist and you go block 3, blow up your rampart.
What if this was the true reason why Winter's Whale got banned?
Maybe.
Yeah, so Riptide has can destroy Oldhim.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the traps are pretty strong. Inertia Trap being a red does mean that you need to be a deck that wants to be playing D reacts for it to be good, or at least like you want to find the matchups where it's good. I think the yellow traps are just super flexible though, because you can pitch them. They're just really, really good cards.
Yeah, it's just. Do you think you're gonna just mainboard these yellow traps in like Azalea?
I kind of doubt that you mainboard them because they have specific conditions to trigger, but I think that you will have it at least some number in the 80. I don't know what the exact mix is. Like maybe you have 2 of each or something, and then you can bring them in when they are relevant.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's really gross that these are defense reactions too. So like you can just respond after your opponent plays something like a Razor Reflex or like a Pummel, and you can wait until they actually increase their power before playing them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives Rangers some like more defensive options, which I think is really cool because that's something that they've been kind of lacking. So it's cool to see more options for them.
Let's just move on. I have the next point that you put out here says what is alignment arrows?
So there's like it's the ailments. There's basically like a cycle of arrows that they're 1 for 5s. They get +1 if they have an aim counter on them, and then on hit they create. There's one that makes a blood rot pox. There's one that makes an inertia token, and there's one that makes a frailty token. I think they're all pretty good. I think that the laces are probably the stronger option in Azalea because they're just direct upgrades to a lot of your existing pumps, and they give you an on hit. And I think the arrows are better in Lexi because you usually have less room for pumps. But I think that these cards are pretty good, and in particular, I think the Blood Rot Pox ones are really good. For our listeners, Blood Rot Pox says at the beginning of your end step, you take 2 damage unless you pay 3 resources. So it's pretty much 2 damage or a card from their hand, an entire card, specifically a blue.
Well, yeah, it's almost those. It's how did we explain it before? We said it was like a frost hex that was harder to block.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And honestly, that's just super strong because Lace with Blood Rot, if the attack is not fully blocked, this is just a 0 for 5.
Yeah, lace. Honestly, all the laces are pretty insane, right? Because it gets plus
Yeah.
3 power still.
Yeah, they're all very good, but I think the Blood Rot ones in particular are the easiest to translate to value, just because you get like the +2. Same thing with the infecting shot, just like a 1 for 5 with 2 damage on hit. For reference, I think that this is kind of like this is basically like Mauve Shrill, right? From Viscerai, like where you kind of like have to block it's like a yellow Mauve Skies, right? Because like you give like if it's a 4 power arrow, you give it +3 that's coming in for 7, and then on hit they take 2 damage. It's basically like a Mauve Shrill scenario, and that's really strong.
But instead, you don't have to play this really bad attack that has very small base power. You can play it with cards with really high base power and like evasion and dominate from Azalea. It gets grosser and grosser.
Yeah, I think they're all good, but the Blood Rot ones are particularly powerful. And I wouldn't be surprised if Infecting Shot is a staple in Lexi. It's just so good.
these cards feel really pushed, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the frailty ones feel like the most whatever to me. Inertia is reasonably strong, but they already like Ranger already has Seek and Destroy, so it's kind of redundant. It's just a worse Seek and Destroy, honestly. But I guess you have more of that effect. But the Blood Rot ones stand out as very, very push to me.
You don't like, or I guess it just depends on the matchup too. If some of these inertia tokens are good or frailty tokens are good or not, but you don't think they're just gonna strictly replace like, sorry, I don't know the current cards they play. Like take is it take aim?
Oh, take aim. Yeah, I do think that take aim is getting phased out. I think the problem is that there's a lot of good pumps and a lot of good non-attacks in this set. The laces are one of them, but there are others as well.
Oh, okay, so I guess you think that people are just gonna play the best ones, or do you think people are gonna like start sculpting for the format, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I could see it going either way. I think there will be like predicting the format and being able to counter it a lot, counter it a little bit. Like frailty is good against basically all the outsiders classes. It's good against the ninjas and the assassins because it turns off their weapons, and it's good against ranger because it affects cards from arsenal. So I think it can be good, but I think it's a little more situational. Whereas blood rot pox is just
Pure
it's just
damage.
damage. It's just
Yeah.
always good. On the topic of buffs, let's also talk about premeditate. This is a generic, and some people are calling it plunder run. I've also heard people call it ponder run. It says it's a red 0 cost 2 block that is a generic action, and it says the next time an attack action card hits, create or so hits a hero specifically, so it won't trigger on allies. It says create a ponder token. And the next attack action card you play from Arsenal this turn gains +3 attack. Go again. So the comparison to Plunder Run, I think, is obvious. It draws you a card, but the card draws delayed. So it's more of a value card than like a spike damage card. But I think that the line of text that's easy to miss is that it has the plus power only happens to an attack that is in Arsenal, which I think limits which classes can use this. Like in Briar, this is pretty awkward, right? Because you need to have an attack in Arsenal when you draw this in order for it to be live. Otherwise, you just can't get the power out of it, and you can't Arsenal it to wait for a card because then you don't have a card in Arsenal.
Yeah, this card is really awkward in basically all the non-ranger decks. So it really does just look like a ranger special, like a ranger card, but they get to print it in the generic just in case some other heroes get to play with the arsenal later on, I guess.
It even has Azalea prominently featured in the artwork, which is pretty funny. So
Yeah, it's basically saying I'm a ranger card, but I ran out of ranger slots in this set.
yeah, this card is super super pushed. I mean, people know how good Plunder Run is.
It's banned.
I think it's better. This is better than Plunder Run and Ranger because you don't even need to arsenal it to get the +3. The Ponder tokens may be a little bit worse in the immediate card draw, but I think overall it's probably a little better than Plunder Run, which is saying a lot.
Yeah, that is saying a lot. So many cards that are pushed for ranger in this set.
Yeah, and Ranger just always wants to have an arsenal, so like this is pretty close to a 6 point card, and I think you just slam this in every Ranger deck. Like I think in Lexi, you should be finding space for this card. Like Rain Razors on 3 arrows is +6. This card is +6, and it asks almost nothing. Like you play this with 2 arrows, they're not going to be able to block it out. You know what I mean? Like you come in for like 7 and 6. Like how are they? What are they going to
Oh, this
do?
is the next time an attack action hits. It's not even that arrow.
Yeah, it's basically the plunder run text, except it's a ponder token.
Oh, I misread this card the first time I read it. Yeah, this card is insane. Wow. This card's better than
Yeah,
I thought. And I thought it was already good.
yeah, it's really good. So I think that's the thing with the laces is like you have this, you already had some good ones like read the glide path and seek and destroy. So there's a limit to how many pumps you can play. You have dead eye. Like there's a lot of very good pumps in Azalea right now.
And Azalea was like creeping up to towards the top tables. Now I feel like it's gonna be in the top tables for sure.
I think so. She just got a whole bunch of small upgrades. We covered a lot of them. I think that there's even more in this set that we haven't talked about. There's like some small utility cards and small small little upgrades and optimizations you can get, and it's just really strong.
Let's talk about the codexes because that's also an upgrade to Ranger.
Yeah, and the codexes will kind of bridge us over nicely to our next class, which is assassin, since they are all the codexes are assassin ranger actions. So they're usable by either class.
We'll start off with Codex of Bloodrot. So all the codexes are mythic rarity, and they are all assassin ranger actions that cost 0, pitches for yellow, and blocks for 2. So this is the same for all the codexes. But Codex of Bloodrot reads, each hero puts a card from their hand face down into their arsenal. Create a ponder token under your control and a Bloodrot Pox token under your opponent's control. Go again.
So in terms of value, you play this card, you do 2 damage, and you get a card at the end of your turn. It's a good value card. I think what is interesting about this card is that it's actually really good against a deck like Oldhim that's wanting to block you out at pushing damage. Because if let's say he's already Crown of Seeds and you play Codex of Bloodrot, you can put a card from his hand back into his arsenal that he can no longer defend with. That's not, it's not like you're not really gaining value out of the card, but it is helping you push damage through blocks, which is something that I think honestly both assassin and ranger kind of struggle with against defensive decks like Oldhim. So I think it will be very good in those spots, and it's just a decent value card overall.
Yeah, essentially read 0 for 2, draw a card. It's fine. Next card will be Codex of Frailty. This one reads, each hero puts an attack action card from their graveyard face down into their arsenal. Each hero that does discards a card. And then create a ponder token under your control and a frailty token under each opponent's control. And also let's go again.
Yeah, so I think the best thing to get with this is Arsenal interaction, because it is not a May effect. Your opponent has to put, actually all of the codexes aren't May effects, so that's why Codex of Bloodrot gets blocks out of the way, and that's why Codex of Frailty like kind of it puts a card in your arsenal, in your opponent's arsenal, if they don't already have one. It is one of their choice, but if you have like Command and Conquer, or you're an assassin and you want to grab Leave No Witnesses, you can immediately pressure their arsenal and then get a ponder token and give them a frailty token as well, which is really strong.
Yeah, Codex of Frailty, being able to pick these cards that interact with the arsenal, it's it's pretty messed up. Like mostly Command and Conquer, because then your opponent has to essentially use 2 cards in their hand to block with. They already discarded a card, so they only have the 1 card in the arsenal left. This doesn't actually net you, like it doesn't actually like net the card because they get a card and then they discard a card. So they still have the 4 cards, and if they already had an arsenal, they don't have to discard a card. But you being able to pick the disruption that you want in that spot, like you can even get like a surgical extraction if you know your opponent's arsenal card, or like you getting to
Yeah.
pick the most powerful card in your deck and playing it the 4th time. It was pretty messed up with like Remembrance, and this is just like a more consistent and easier way to do it.
Yeah. And notably, Codex of Frailty encourages you to empty your hand, because the each hero that does put a card in discards a card is not, it's not a cost. So if you just don't have, if you play Codex of Frailty and your hand is empty, you don't have to discard. And then it's actually just card advantage, because your Codex gets you the attack action from your arsenal. From your discard into your arsenal. And then you also get a ponder token and you give them a frailty token, all off of 1 card. So it's like 2 cards for 1 card, and you give them a frailty token and you get card selection.
Yeah, this card is, of all the codexes, I think this is the most messed up one.
Yes, I think it is the most universally powerful and the easiest one to get value out of.
The third codex is called Codex of Inertia. This one reads, each hero puts the top card of their deck face down into the arsenal. Each hero that does discards a card. Create a ponder token under your control and an inertia token under each opponent's control. Go again. This card is very similar to Codex of Frailty. It's the same line of text. If you don't have a card to discard, you get to not discard a card. Or like if you play this card as your last card in hand, you just get a free card. But unlike Codex of Frailty, you don't get to choose what card you get in your arsenal. So if that card is, let's say, like a 2 cost and you don't have resources floating, or it's like a reaction card or a defense reaction card, it's just like it's a little bit less value than Codex of Frailty.
Yeah, I think that this card has some deck building requirements. It works best if you have a lot of zero cost stuff that you can play out. I actually think that this card's best home might be in Lexi, because if you build almost all zero cost arrows, even if you get like a blue searing shot and you play out the blue searing shot, then you get a ponder token. That's pretty good. And there's also some really awkward things that can happen on your opponent's side with Codex of Inertia. um, we kind of mentioned how having the inertia token like face up is makes it easier to play around, but if you have go again attacks and you're like, let's say you strip part of your opponent's hand and they have like one card left and you codex them, they put a card into their arsenal, they have to discard their card, and then they have no cards in hand, and then their arsenal gets cleared.
If they can't play that card, right?
If they can't play it, yes. But against some decks, like that's pretty real. Like I'm thinking against like Icelander, that's pretty real. Even if they have like two cards in hand, like if they've blocked and they kept like their wounded bull and a blue, and you play this, like it's really awkward.
Yeah, that is true. There's a lot of cards that's hard to play during your own turn in Icelander. Honestly, Inertia Token is really good against Icelander.
Yeah. I think the fact that like if you can play this late in the chain when they've already blocked and they've planned their hand, and you're just like, here's a random card off the top of your deck, against some decks that's really good. Like I was playing against Akatsu and he just put like a dishonor into his arsenal, and he's like, my hand's great, I don't want to discard my combo line for this dishonor that doesn't do anything. I think Codex of Inertia is like hard to there's a lot of ways you can play it. It's tricky card to play, but I think that is actually really powerful.
The cool part about the Codex of Frailty and Codex of Inertia is if you have New Horizons, you get to still keep a card in your arsenal face up and then just put a new card into your arsenal face down,
Yep.
and just
Yeah.
and you get to play like just the face down card or flip it up with Lexi or something and play the other face up card and then ponder draw arsenal still. So like if you have New Horizon and Lexi, like there are more than one way, or like there's ways you can keep cards in your arsenal and still play and still get value from these codexes.
Yeah. I think it's really strong. There is like a bit of a trick in that the card comes face down, so you need to have not activated Lexi already, but you can make it work.
There's are spots where people activate Lexi's ability just for no reason. If putting that extra layer of like playing to activate Lexi later, or honestly it'd be pretty sweet when you like if you can like randomly get an ice card from the top of your deck face down.
Yeah. Arctic Incarceration, flip it up, give you 3 frostbites. You can't play your cards.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways that this card can shine. I think it's really good. I think it's also pretty good in Arsenal, just like face up for Lexi, and you're just like your opponent just always has to consider like, what if they just jam a card into my arsenal, make me discard a card, and then give me an inertia token.
Yeah, these codexes are a little bit messed up.
I think they're really strong. And there's like some limit to how much Lexi can fit these things. Like you can't fit Fuse and Rain Razors and Three of a Kind and the Codexes and Premeditate. Like you can't fit it all. So you're
What?
gonna have to make some choices.
Why not? Just play it on, see what happens.
Well, you can try and fit as many as you can. That's currently my take. I'm just gonna try and play as many codexes as I can.
Yeah, it's like these cards are messed up. Just do more messed up stuff than your opponent does, right?
Yeah, you just play the codexes and premeditate and a bunch of zero cost arrows. And I think you have a pretty good deck.
Okay, well, let's move on. We'll be talking about the new hero assassin. It's called Uzuri, and this reads once per turn attack reaction. Banish a card from your hand face down. Turn the card banished this way face up. If an attack action card with cost 2 or less, put target attacking card with stealth from the active chain link on the bottom of its owner's deck, and then put the banished card onto the active chain link as the attacking card. I said a lot of things here. Simply said, if you attack with a stealth card, You can turn it into any 2 costs in your hand.
Yes. What do you think about this hero ability, Jay? I know you have some thoughts.
I said this last episode. I think a lot of people that know me knew this, but I wanted a defensive ability on Azuri. This is not a defensive ability for sure, which is I'm very disappointed with this card.
It's a little bit awkward because most of the 2 cost stuff that you're putting in is 6 power, and you could just pitch for it instead of play stealth. There's like a little bit of a hidden information factor, and like you have some on hits to force through. So it's not, there's some value to this, but I think that Uzuri is going to have to get a lot of value out of her on hits to make it worthwhile because most of this, I think all the stealth cards are 3 power. They don't have go again, and they have some like marginal on hit. There's like the blood rot one is pretty good. The rest are kind of whatever. And then you have like 6 powers. But if you're attacking for 6 and then you're blocking with 2 cards for 6, that's 12 points, and that's not really a recipe for success in CC. So you need to be getting value out of your on hits to make up that, I don't know, 2 points that you're missing or whatever, 2 to 3 points that you're missing.
Yeah, it's also just a little bit awkward that you have to play with stealth cards. You can't actually activate Azuri's ability unless you play with cards with stealth on it. So it doesn't actually work with any of the attacks that got printed in Dynasty. So all of those cards have contract and it doesn't have stealth.
Yeah. One thing worth noting is that which stealth, like you can pretty easily play blue stealth cards in your deck because if you are flipping that card, if you're getting rid of that card and you're swapping in a 2 cost attack instead, then it doesn't really matter if the card was blue or red. And since a lot of the reds are just 3 power no go again attacks, you're probably most incentivized to play blues.
Yeah, I don't think you actually want to play almost any of the red ones. Maybe Infect. Infect has this like you play it, your opponent has to block it for 3, or it's a 0 for 5. Um,
Yeah, maybe infiltrate as well. It's stealth. When this hits a hero, banish the top card of your deck. You may play it until the end of your next turn. It's like pseudo card draw.
Oh, Infiltrate is one of my favorite cards from this set. Infiltrate and Shakedown. We'll talk about that a little bit. These are both assassin action M's. Infiltrate is a 0 cost red line that attacks for 3, blocks for 3. This card reads Stealth, and it says when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. You may play it until the end of your next turn. So you don't have to play it this turn. Um, you have to play it on your next turn cycle. So
Well, you could play it this turn, but you have to find a way to give this go again if you want to.
or if it's an instant, you can play right away. Like if it's like
Yeah, Sigil of
Sigil of
Solace.
Solace,
Yeah,
yeah. If you flip like a defense reaction, you can play it. You can play it on your opponent's turn. Honestly, Infiltrate's a sick card because it always rips a card of your opponent's hand because they have to block this, and if they don't, you get to one rip a card off the top of their deck if that's relevant to you, and sometimes you just get to rip like a really good card like that you want to play. Like this will let you play some guardian disrupted cards like Spinal Crush, or the worst cards you can rip is like just a blue pitch in general because you can't actually pitch that card, you have to play it.
yeah, and combined with like some of the assassin attack reactions, like we already have cut the chase and shred, for example. They have like kind of a bunch of these 0 cost attack reactions, and their daggers make it harder to block. I think infiltrate is fairly threatening, and you can kind of reuse it, right? Like if they block this, you can put it to the bottom of your deck, come in with a 6 power, and then you'll make them go through it again in the future, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I actually think Infiltrate is, of all the cards that got printed in the set, it's one of my favorites. It just has like a lot of the flexibility and has a relevant enough on hit that your opponent gets annoyed with. But the main card for that Assassin God is a card called Shakedown. This is an Azuri specialization, so only Azuri gets to play it. It is a red line cost 2 that attacks for 6, blocks for 3. But this card reads, if you've played or activated an attack reaction this chain link, Shakedown has, when this hits a hero, choose a red, yellow, or blue. They reveal their hand, banish a card of that chosen color. This card is, how do I want to say this? Shakedown is a messed up card. Like, it's, you can just play this card by pitching, paying 2. You don't even have to activate Uzuri's ability to play it. But if you do activate Uzuri's ability to play it, its ability is already triggered, so it has the on hit. If you don't use Azuri's ability to play it, you can use Mask of Perdition, you can use Black Tech Whispers, you can use any of the equipment that has an attack reaction. You can actually use an attack reaction like, you know, cut the chase. Cut the chase?
Yeah, cut the chase. You can pummel it. It's
You
2
can
cost.
you can pummel it. You can, there's just like so many ways to trigger this ability, and honestly, just having Mask of Perdition or Black Duck Whispers to be able to trigger Shakedown anyways is probably like my favorite. The reason why I like Shakedown so much is because the attack reaction that you have to play that doesn't read attack reaction card. It's just any attack reaction.
I think another notable thing about this card is that because it banishes the card, it actually interacts favorably with contract. Now, it's not going to be easy to do because I don't think that Uzuri wants to play a lot of contract cards, but you play Leave No Witnesses and Surgical Extraction for sure because those cards are both just great. And if you somehow manage to get go again on that and then you go into Shakedown, you can potentially get another silver that way, which is marginal, but I think that realistically Azuri is going to be limited to playing like one of the equipment that you buy back with silver, and you might buy it back like once in the game kind of thing.
Really, the way that I'm thinking about it right now is you play Black Tech Whispers and Mask of Perdition. You can use Black Tech Whispers to give it go again.
Yeah, I think most of the time you're pretty. I think Azuri will be pretty incentivized to play stealth blues though. I think you're pretty incentivized to do that because not only does Azuri's ability trigger Shakedown, but if your opponent blocks 6, you just get to put your Shakedown in Arsenal and then threaten them with it again next turn. So,
Yeah,
like, you
yeah,
get full information. I mean, if they have D reacts, it throws a wrench in the plan, but still, it's pretty strong.
yeah. That's the problem with Assassins is that it loses pretty hard to Fate Foreseen and Sink Below.
Yeah, the D reacts are really good for sure. I think we should also talk about the other Assassin M. I think it's really strong if you're going for like a damage based deck. Spreading Plague, it is a assassin attack reaction that blocks 3. It's a yellow and it costs 1. And it says create X Blood Rot Pox tokens under the defending hero's control, where X is the number of defending cards this chain link. It is not that hard. So a lot of your stuff attacks for 6 and threatens on hits. It is not that hard to make this worth 4.
Yes, I think this card is pretty good. I've heard of already like people testing on Talishar that they block with 3 pieces of equipment and they got spreading plagued, and
Yeah.
it's a 1 for 6 at that point. So
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty insane. This card is good on rate.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting it doesn't need to target an assassin attack, so you can just like play this on your command and conquer.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Well, typically, I guess yeah, if your opponent blocks with 2 cards, the Command and Conquer, 1 for 4.
It's pretty
It
good.
it does get a little awkward though. If your opponent this card can easily get stuck in your arsenal, or if your opponent only blocks with 1 card, it's a 1 for 2, which is very below rate. So you might have to like pitch it or block with it. And pitching a yellow is not it's not the best with assassin because then that just turns into a dagger. Or I guess if you play a 2 cost with it, it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's pretty strong in Azuri. I don't think it really has a place in Arachne since Arachne seems to be pretty incentivized to just mill you out.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not too high on this card. I think this will see play. I think it will be good, but it might be a little bit too clunky for it to be actually insane.
I guess we'll have to see. I think in combination with the like the weapons debuffing things, and then some of your disruption like shakedown or command and conquer, or leave no witnesses.
Yeah, I think if you can keep a 3 or 4 card hand, this card is pretty insane with disruption and forcing your opponent to block. But all of it lining up, it might need to be on second cycle. Um, but you have it has to line up, right? Like that's the thing with that I have with this card.
But it's still a block three. Like you can just
Yeah,
block with it. I think it's fine.
yeah. It is a block three.
Like I think that this like Azuri always plays this card. Or do you
Uh,
disagree? Do you think Azuri this won't make Azuri lists?
I think this will make some Missouri list. I think it's good. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna play it. I don't like yellow lines that much. It blocking for 3 is good, but I am not a big fan of cards that require a very specific. Like I don't like needing to put together column A, column B, column C, where this is like you need to play. I guess you can just play Command and Conquer and Spreading Plague with a blue pitch. It's not too bad. And,
Or
and you need to have.
shakedown?
Sorry?
It works with shakedown as well, and it triggers shakedown's effect. It works with you can like leave no witnesses and play it off tunic,
Leave no witness, play off Tunic. Yeah,
or
yeah. It's.
surgical off of blue. I think it's pretty strong.
I think the problem I have with it would be like if you are planning to play Spreading Plague and you want your opponent to block with 2 cards, and they decide not to for any reason, they just decide to block with 1 card or say no blocks. You have to end up arsenaling this card, and then this card gets stuck in your arsenal, or you have to play it for low value on the next turn after. Is what I'm worried about. You can't just like not arsenal this card and draw 3 cards, right? Like that's not really a good option.
No, you can't do that. I think Uzuri is going to have enough on hits, but I could be wrong. Maybe you take it out in matchups if you know that they're really not going to block you. But I think in matchups where they're going to block you to some degree, like you're going to want this card.
Yeah, I think it'll make the a lot of lists. I don't know if it's like as universally powerful as it's. I think it's like a higher variance card where it's when it's good, it's insanely good. When it's
Yeah.
fine, it's like fine, and when it's bad, it's just like you'll probably have moments when you play this card. You keep a 4 card hand or 3 card hand, and then you're like, oh, my turn was like less good than like if I ended up blocking for 3 with this card, it was better or something like that. Whereas your opponent keeps if you see an Azuri keep a 3 card hand and it looks like they're like telegraphing Spreading Plague, you might be able to play around it. Is my concern essentially. Like you can play, when your opponent has Razor Reflex. I have a feeling that it's going to be similar to that kind of feel.
Maybe. I think it's interesting because you do have like Assassin just has other good attack reactions like cut to the chase. So there's like a little bit of a it feels closer to Dory where there's like not that many options, but there's still like multiple to consider rather than just it's like a little bit
Yeah,
less
yeah.
obvious what they have than like Pummel in Oldham, for example. It's you know it's Pummel.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably like the same kind of line that I'm thinking through as well, where it's like when I play against Dory, I'm thinking of all the cards they could have in their hand.
Yeah.
And the happiest moment in my life when I play against a Dory is when I correctly assess what cards in their hand and then they end up not using it because it doesn't work in that spot, and then they only draw 3 cards or 2 cards.
Yeah, I think that they should be finding spots where that's not happening, basically.
Yes, yes, but I'm saying that the player playing against Dory has that agency to create that situation more than the other way around, which I think is a big problem on cards. Like it's probably the biggest reason why I'm not a fan of Dory is those spots where you can like blank cards in Dory's hands that could have been big game. Like if you made the wrong decision, essentially, you just get blown out and you lose. And I think Spreading Plague has that same feel of like if you make the wrong decision against Spreading Plague and like put 4 cards underneath the attack to block it out, and they have Spreading Plague, you just immediately lose the game.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it will come down to like how incentivized, how scary is it to no block in Azuri, and I think that the entire hero kind of revolves around that because like we kind of talked about needing to get value out of your disruption and your attacks, and I think that if they are no blocking you, those need to carry their own weight. But as soon as they start blocking you, you're decently happy because if they're scared into blocking a stealth card for 6, you just don't have to Azuri, you get to arsenal it, and then you're kind of like up a card worth of value at that point. So yeah, it really comes down to like how the play patterns against Azuri wind up being and how scary not blocking is. And I guess we'll have to see in testing.
Yeah, well, only time will tell for that. Just I have this like image of Azuri with the attack reactions, paralleling with Doranthea, where Doranthea has these like Doranthea always has the weapon that it's basing off the attack reactions. But then in Azuri, if you draw like 4 attack reactions, it does nothing. Or if you draw 4 attacks, it's like it's less good. And
Yeah, there's definitely a limit to how much you can do
so you
this.
need to have like a mix of both essentially. And that's like a thing down against Dory where you don't need a mix of both in Dory. But because you have a mix of both, you can do more unique plays and there's more lines you can take with Azuri. It has its ups and downs. I'm just like not as high on playing attack reactions in Azuri as I think you are.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, nah, 0 for 3 attack reactions are still good. They push 3 damage. It's like a head jab with go again with 3 block. Good card. You play it.
Yeah, I think it's a decent amount. I think that's where we differ is that I think it's a decent amount better than that, so long as like anytime that it is pushing through an on hit, you get the value of the on hit plus the +3. So like head job's already decently playable, like we see that in Phi.
Yeah, it just depends on how good your on hits can be and how much your opponent has to respect that card in hand becomes, or how much you can not what's it called telegraph that that's what you're doing. I think is where I'm at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because like I don't know if you're everyone's playing like razor reflexes and spreading plague, it might be interesting. I think that might be like the spot where you want to be, where you play 3 razors, 3 spreading plague, because they're both 1 cost attack reactions, and they both do like the opposite of like spreading plague. You don't want to block it, but razor reflex you do want to block it.
Yeah, yeah, for
But
sure.
I don't know. I'm just not as high on like these like column A, column B, put it together to make something very powerful. And
You
like
like your consistent decks.
I like consistency in my decks. I don't like the inconsistent. I think I'm still scarred from the moment I played Starville for the first time, and I went to a Pro Quest, and I go first hand 4 Earth cards, second hand 4 Ice cards, third hand 4 Lightning cards. 2 of them blocked for 0. I lost the game.
CJ, I play Ranger. I'm used to this. Happens all the time. It's normal.
I don't understand Ranger players.
I mean, yeah,
I like
it's
all
tough.
my cards blocking for 3 and blocking for 3. I like using Oldham ability and Crown of Seeds. I like consistency.
Well, Oldham's not going anywhere, so you can still play him. You want to talk about Katsu really quickly and then wrap up the show?
Sure. Katsu. Do you want to talk about Katsu? I have nothing to say about Katsu other than Bonds of Ancestry is a messed up card.
Yeah, we kind of talked about bonds already. Obviously, anytime you can banish like a 4 power attack, it's like a 0 for 8, which is really, really strong. You got an extension of the combo line with Surging Strike because you now have Descendant Gust Wave. You also have the Be Like Water, which can it's a head jab. You can pay 1 to make it into a Surging Strike if it hits. So he just has like more ways to combo. I think the cards that have me outside of those, the ones that I think are on a lot of people's radar, the yeah, the other combo line that's got me excited is actually a new one. It builds off of Twin Twisters, and that's Spinning Wheel Kick. It is a leg tap, so a 1 for 4 that blocks for 2 at red, and it has natural go again. And it says combo: if Twin Twisters or Spinning Wheel Kick was the last attack of this combat chain, it has +1, and when this hits, put it on the bottom of the deck. Sorry, on the bottom of its owner's deck. And so this is just like a leg tap that the combo with itself is whatever. I think it's mostly just a leg tap though. And then its follow up is Cyclone Roundhouse. This is a 2 cost attack for 5 with combo. And it says if spinning wheel kick was the last attack this combat chain, at the beginning of the reaction step, banish a random defending card from each chain link. This is pretty strong. Notably, you don't even need Twin Twisters. You can just play Spinning Wheel Kick as the starter and go right into Cyclone Roundhouse. So you can pitch a blue, come in for 9. And this might not be good everywhere, but I think against decks that want to block you, Cyclone Roundhouse is going to be a pain because unless they have a reaction to throw at it, like it just banishes one of the cards that they block with. Also, blocking Spinning Wheel Kick with equipment or Cyclone Roundhouse with equipment is really scary because it can banish the equipment.
You can't block spinning wheel kick with equipment. You just can't.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is like I think that Katsu has had some problems into like Oldham trying to block him out, and I think that this is a pretty good tool against.
Oh, actually, now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. Because this will work with the Kodachis as well, right? So, like, if you started with, like, pitch a blue Kodachi, and if they block with Ram's Head,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
if
you
you
could
go
potentially get it that way.
spinning wheel kick cyclone roundhouse, you banish Ram's Head.
And I think notably like Cyclone Roundhouse is just a really annoying card to block because it banishes a card defending it. So that card's not defending anymore. So in a sense, like
You can't block
if
this
your
card.
if your if your card is, if your goal is to block this card out, like this card's attacking for 8 effectively, right? So I think in those fatigue matchups, this card is going to be like a really strong sideboard card. And leg tap is already like a pretty good card, and that's what spinning wheel kick is. So I think that this combo line is just like pretty good.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Cyclone roundhouse is just is unblockable 5.
And I think that you'll side it out against the decks that don't want to block you, and you'll side it in against the decks that do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think still like the best card is Bonds of Ancestry. It's uh it's a little bit hard to get together all the cards for Bonds of Ancestry, but when you do, it hits for 8, which is not fair. Like hitting for 8 is not fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can do some deck building. Like I would be playing probably blue Flusterfists and then playing at least one red Flusterfist that you can just tutor with this as a 4 for 0 if you happen to have blocked with one of your blues earlier in the game, as just like more ways. I think the more that you can like sneak in reasonable tutor targets that are also your blues that block, the easier it's going to be to pull off.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. There's just like a lot of 0 for 4 combo cards in general, like that cost 0. Like it doesn't even have to be Flusterfist, right? There's other ones. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but
Anything else you want to talk about ninjas in general?
I think those are the main cards. I think that Ninja gets specifically Katsu. Like these are really Katsu cards. I don't think Fi is going to really be interested in combo. Um, but I think that this puts Katsu in potentially a pretty good spot. The Bonds of Ancestry line and this Spinning Wheel Kick line, I think, are pretty big upgrades. And I think Katsu kind of had to play some like filler-ish cards before, and I think that now it's like your deck is all good cards. I don't know if that puts him in tier 1 or not, but I think that he has a chance. And the other really cool thing about Katsu is that like you play all the combo cards, so you can just play 3 to 6 flick flacks in your board, and you just become a pretty good mid range deck at the same time. So
Yeah, yeah. This what's that card called? Wow, Cyclone Roundhouse blocks for 3.
yeah,
Solid.
yeah. So you can just block with it with flick flack too. I think it has a lot of applications actually.
Before we wrap up, there's one last card in this set that I want to talk about. It's just Peace of Mind. I'm happy with this card. It's essentially the common defense reaction of the set that blocks for 4. This one's, from my knowledge, only playable in Oldham essentially. This is a red line that costs 2. It's a generic instant, and it says the next time you would be dealt power damage or combat damage this turn, prevent 4 of that damage. And then it says create a ponder token. This just works really well with Crown of Seeds, and then you Peace of Mind, and you get to prevent, you know, you got to prevent more damage and draw a card off the Peace of Mind. So it's essentially a 0 for 4 replace a card. So yeah, I'm just happy that we got more defensive cards.
Yes, Jay. We have even more defensive tools. I think that this could maybe be good in, like, we know that light illusionists are coming back. This card, I don't know what that light illusionist will play like, but I think being able to use the extra resource is key to Peace of Mind being decent. And I think that like Footsteps plus Peace of Mind, and then illusionist, like if you're still playing a bunch of yellows, has pretty solid arsenal cards, so I could see it seeing play there. But I don't think this deck just I don't think this card slots in everywhere. I think you need to have a reliable way to get that extra value out of it for it to really be good.
Yeah, you need a way to use that one floating resource.
Yeah, and a way to use the ponder token reliably, either Crown of Seeds or just your deck is built in a way where all of your cards you're fine arsenaling.
Okay, I think that's the last card I want to talk about in this set for CC.
Yeah, definitely a lot to talk about. I'm sure that there's some cards we didn't touch on, notably some of the legendary equipment. We'll talk about them at a future time, but we were really sticking to the cards we were most excited about, and I think that while some of them might see some play here and there, there's nothing obviously super powerful. I think most of the power in this set is really in the cards that you shuffle into your deck.
Mostly the Ranger cards.
Yeah, honestly, mostly the Ranger cards, and I guess like the codexes for Assassin to some degree as well.
The card reads Ranger as well.
That's fair. I think it is maybe better in Ranger, but I don't know. Maybe Assassins can find a way to make this work. I think Frailty is pretty good because you have like you're already playing CNC and Leave No Witnesses, so I think that's
Yeah,
going to be pretty good.
yeah. But I'm just sad that those codexes says Ranger on it. They could have just said Assassin, and I think it'll be. I would have been okay with it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Ranger definitely got some love this set. Actually, I think all of the classes. Well, Ninja and Ranger got a lot of love. Assassin got a new playstyle, and I think we're both a little bit iffy on it. But who knows? Maybe we'll be a little surprised. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Azuri is one of those decks where if you don't know what it does, you'll lose to it. Once you learn what it does, you'll stop losing to it a lot.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it's like not going to be like a Levi or a Bolton, but don't I don't know if I buy it being like a top tier meta defining deck either.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be playing Azuri for like 3 months, so like I don't like how Azuri was framed in a lot of the cards in this set, but I'm still playing her apparently. So that's where I am at. Disappointed, but still playing it.
No Oldham?
I I really like how Arachne plays, and I feel like I want to play Arachne in the current playstyle, but I also want to play Shakedown, and I don't care about Arachne's tact, so I'm gonna play Uzuri, but she's Arachne, but I get to play Shakedown.
Okay, fair enough. I guess that is a thing that you can do with Azuri if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's just Uzuri. Uzuri is Arachne, but then it has the name Uzuri, so then you can play Uzuri specializations.
Fair enough. All right, I think that's going to wrap up our show. A little bit of a longer one for sure. Let us know down in the comments below what you're most excited for in Outsiders, whether that's one of the heroes or a particular card. Is there something that we missed that you think is going to be a major player in the format that we didn't talk about? We'd love to hear about it down in the comments. I think this is like one of the most exciting times to be playing card games when you get a new set. So hopefully everyone's excited to start jamming games on Talishar, start playing pre-release in a few weeks, and yeah, good luck to all of you in all your testing games and whatnot. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach out to us at onthebauble@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at YukiLiBender, or you can find Jay on Twitter at UetaJ. And that's going to wrap us up for now. Have a good night, everyone.